with the prover along with the outcome of the result, and the verifier can verify the prover and say, yes, okay, I agree that this has been done by the prover, and I will take the result without actually needing to look at the driver's license and the actual date of birth. So in many places you would want to try to enable the security and privacy and things like that, and also it's talking about selective replication and stuff like that. So we need to think about which flavors to use. There are many examples going on. Actually, interestingly, in India, the Telecom Regulatory Authority has actually mandated blockchain for one of the use cases, do not disturb the DND, UCC, unsolicited consumer communications. They're also exploring mobile number portability and roaming and stuff like that. But in the DND use case, essentially you have registered with the DND system, and a message could come from an originating access provider and go to a terminating access provider where you might be receiving a message. But all the network operators would be sitting on the blockchain, and they would know what your preference is, and no message should reach you because your preference is shared across all the operators, and it should get filtered even at the origination point. Even if it doesn't, it should get filtered at the termination point. So here is where all the operators are coming together, and TRAI has mandated that we have to do this on a blockchain system, which is interesting. There is a possibility that, hey, you could have some neutral entity with managing the shared database that would do the filtering, but it's also put some liability in terms of recording who did what to actually to have the blockchain in place, which gives more information in the system and protection. So the other things are like having eKYC, user identity, privacy management, trade finance, supply chain, IoT applications, automotive, retail, transportation, healthcare, tracing the provenance of products, employment, education services, and then smart governance applications, healthcare, education, agriculture, finance, real estate management. I'll try to cover some of these things, but one beyond data, as Professor Bharadwaj was talking about, we need to go into logic that is executed. One thing that happens inside a blockchain is that you also have, as the nodes process the data, they actually have some code that executes that results in the next data that needs to be stored on the blockchain. So that's called a smart contract that they all agree to execute. And anything that you would want to process in the system, you actually record what logic was used along with the data. So, and then logic itself could evolve. The software version may evolve. So you record the version of the software, which routine was used to produce the data, and then record the data along with that code. So that tells you that also protects information and due diligence aspects in the system and so on. So coming back to this thing, essentially there is not only the ledger, but in each of these nodes there are these smart contracts that are executing based on the transactions that are happening. In some systems, all of them execute the same contract. In some selective execution systems, only the nodes that need to execute will execute and record in their ledgers and so on. So what could be the future of smart governance? I mean, and what is a smart contract? I mean, it's essentially, it's not necessarily artificial intelligence, but it's automated intelligence for the smart governance of that particular use case. And you put that in software, and as the data is coming through in the system, and as you were talking about, hey, I'm getting all of this data, can I do some automated processing? You could do the automated processing, but also record what logic was being used, who did what, and what result was produced. And so all of these distributed smart agents would be executing this logic to enable these smart governance applications. I mean, the smart contract is one level. There would be another level of intelligence at the application layer itself, which could be based on IoT and things like that, which could trigger some processing inside the blockchain, whether you realize that there was a huge fire in that location, or you know, the pollution level went up in a certain place and so on. One example, and there would be applications sitting on top, such as a payment gateway that could incentivize you know, payments in a system. If we talk about pollution in Delhi, we can monitor pollution, but how do we correct the problem? Can we go back and see what is the problem with those farmers that are burning the crop residue? And you know, they're saying, hey, by the time the crop residue comes, it's too late for me to go buy the equipment. It's going to take me 2 months to get it. And if I do buy it, I don't get the subsidy in time. I don't have the money to take care of it. And so I'm just going to burn it. And so can we create an ecosystem there where maybe there may be a whole bunch of farmers, but maybe one is a bigger farmer than the other. That guy can get that straw management system. And maybe the other farmers can just drop their you know, residue in and burn it. And you know, maybe so you can have some micro payments going on there, automatically recorded on blockchain. The incentives are given to both the farmer that brought the crop residue in and the farmer that helped in utilizes straw management system machine. And so they're not waiting for money. You know, the application is sitting on top, the smart contracts executed based on the volume of the crop residue that was input in there. And you know, people may be really happy doing all of this stuff, and then it could go into mulching and become useful compost, you know, to be reused in that system, and you would avoid the pollution. So if we can bring in this kind of smart processing, incentive processing, automated payments, all of that stuff, so to make people happy, you know, it could make a big difference to actually solving the problem. You know, for waste management, we hear that in Bangalore, we separate the waste, but the people who collect the waste, they actually mix things up, or they will, you know, they'll actually put mud into the truck to actually increase the weight of the truck to actually get paid more. And so, as Professor Bharadwaj is saying, we need video, so you can see that he didn't do that. And then if this whole system of delivering the way, and they'll report that they did 6 trips instead of 3, right? And they'll charge you for 6 trips. So if all of this IoT intelligence comes on blockchain and the payment is you know, automated and the incentives are automated, then you know, you can track how many times you actually made the trip and so on. So I think we should combine this, the information that we get from the IoT systems, put that into some sort of smart contract, traceable logic, and record the outcome of that, and enable automated processing, and don't delay, you know, especially people who need money tomorrow, don't delay, you know, them getting the subsidies and things like that. One other thing that we could do is in education, for example, if we could track poor kids, children, and so on from the young ages, and including girl students, and give them subsidies or incentives as they progress in their life, you know, to advance in the education system. And it could be as they walk into a new school, the provenance of other school information, their background information can be monitored so that their education can be continued. There are use cases for employment. For example, migrant laborers, as they leave their homes, the families lose touch with them completely. And they go from one employer to another and another. Nobody knows where they are. But if you could record, you know, if employers could record their information on a blockchain system, then potentially their families could get a message saying, hey, he just got paid this month, and so they know he's there in that location. And then, you know, if the laborer got paid a certain amount, then the employer will have transparency in how much he's paying that laborer. And then, based on the work that he has done, the employment that was history, he can be given new jobs, he or she. So it's not about money, not just about coins, or it's not just about transactions, it can be about people. We can help people with blockchain systems in our ecosystems by bringing together some smartness along with interesting logic. Some other applications could be like in the energy space, in the microgrid, producers of energy could get, could record how much energy they produced, and they could exchange, transact on a blockchain, and so on. With healthcare, with Modi Care, for example, we could manage the insurance for people, and we could have all the hospitals on a single blockchain, and you could go from any hospital to any other hospital, and if, as Professor Bhardwaj is saying, you give, allow control to the user, then they can say, hey, I allow my information from Narayana Hospital to be given to Manipal Hospital, but you could still have a zero knowledge proof there which says, I only expose information for this patient, but not who the doctor was that worked on him or who the nurse was. So the hospital could filter out all the information and still release the information that is needed, and so on. So, there's a lot of things we can do and make it interesting, and although some of these buzzwords are floating around, I think we can be very practical in how we implement things. And when we say zero knowledge proof, all we are saying is we implement some code that says, okay, this is what I want to give out based on this, when this information comes in. It doesn't have to be some mathematical rigorous proof with a prover and a verifier certificate and things like that. So we can keep things simple and yet try to utilize the concepts and make things better for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip. Very nice for you it is everything is simple, right? But for us, when it is implemented, it seems very difficult. Any question? Yeah.
What's the negative aspect of this blockchain? They're telling about cryptocurrency. How trustworthy is cryptocurrency? Somebody has opened this ATM in Bangalore, immediately closed. How let me know. Can we believe in it, or people are getting fooled and losing a lot of money? Some people want to make huge money in a short time. Is it an illegal activity? No, this is the negative aspect of this blockchain. Am I right?
See, the thing is the way the coins are stored. Professor Naveen may have 1,000 bitcoins, but we won't know it. It could just, all that's sitting there is with that bitcoin is the public key of the owner of that. And only the owner of that public key can take his or her private key, which only he or she has. And if you lost that private key, you lost your money, because you can't pass it on, you can't trade it anymore. So it's very anonymous in that sense. And when you create this Bitcoin wallets, the software itself is such that they say, you create the public key, private key, I won't know who, what got generated, right, on your, so you could do it on your phone, but the system that provided you the software will not keep track of it, does not know, only the owner of the Bitcoin knows the private key associated with that owner. And then, but if you want, if Professor Naveen is nice enough to give me 1/10 of a Bitcoin, then he will take my public key and sign it off with his private key. He still has 999.9 Bitcoins left. So, but he will sign it off, right? But he used my public key, but I would have only told him what my public key is so that we exchange between each other. The regulators don't know who is exchanging with whom, and they're only exchanging, things are moving between one public key to another public key to another public key, and nobody knows where the money went. So a lot of money laundering is happening and stuff like that. So it's a scary realm to be in, and so regulators are very afraid of this space at this point. So yeah.
So, Dr. Dilip, one question, simple question about the efficiency of blockchain. So, how efficient it is when the chain grows to a really big chain? You keep adding the nodes, right? And so, does that affect the efficiency?
Does it affect?
The efficiency of the blockchain, as in?
Oh, it's more about storage. So you could actually, store. You always continue the block from the previous block, but you could store away the past 10,000 blocks somewhere else and say, effectively, you start with the genesis block and then you build it. So you could say, okay, my 10,000 blocks are there, and 10,001 block is what I'm starting with. To locally store, but the rest are archived. Maybe you want to go back to that land record thing, so you would go back, fetch it from the archive, but you might not need to. So you'll have to decide what gets archived and how often it gets retrieved and stuff like that. But as far as the performance is concerned, it only depends upon how many nodes are there that are involved in the consensus and things like that. So typically these days, what's happening is you just say, for this transaction, I need a few endorsers. I need 4 endorsers, and could be 4 out of 6, or you could have a set of 6 people, or you could say I need all 4 to approve this, and so on. And so they all attach their signatures, and then you proceed with the transaction. In a public blockchain kind of flavor, there you have a lot of nodes voting on this thing, agreeing that the proof of work was actually completed, to put it on a blockchain, and all these nodes could be distributed around the world, and that results in maybe 7 transactions per second, which is very low and stuff like that. So people when you think about private or small blockchain systems with a small set of nodes, and all the users in India with phone numbers are not sitting on a blockchain as participants on the blockchain. They're hosted by a server that's representing them, going through Airtel or going through Jio or going through Vodafone. So only Airtel, Jio, Vodafone are sitting on the blockchain, and they would approve that, hey, this is the updated D&D preference for this particular user. So the performance is pretty fast when that happens.
Thank you, Dilip. And I request Professor Rajsekhar to hand over a token of appreciation to Dr. Dilip.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Naveen.